Well, good afternoon, members and guests, and welcome to our presentation this afternoon on physical activity and exercise. Just to introduce myself, I'm Brian Holden, Chairman of Mid Sussex Group, and we also have with us Roger Bacon, who's Chairman of Picasso, and also who's just met Alan Taylor, Chairman of the Isle of Wight Group. Just to restate, we are recording this presentation for future use on our websites, so please turn off your video if you do not want to be shown on the recording. Mike has already done it. We'll all be muted during the presentations, and at the end of each presentation is the time to do some questions, so just raise your hand. So just to make an introduction, you possibly have seen this. It's called Knowledge Empowers. Now, for several years, Picasso have produced this guide, which is in plain English, and explains to us patients the various medical aspects of prostate cancer and also various treatments available to us. It's an absolutely fantastic book, and it's helped to see me through the last 4 years. Now, Tony Ball of Picasso was inspired and encouraged to expand on the section of Knowledge Empowers to produce a new guide called Healthy Living for Prostate Cancer for Patients and Survivors. Tony, with the assistance of a few Picasso members, compiled this new plain English guide. Now, what we're doing today is section 1 of the guide, and it's titled Physical Activity and Exercise. And I quote just this one thing directly from the guide this afternoon, and it is, if you really wish to help your body combat prostate cancer, exercise is probably the #1 thing you should do to help extend your life and lifestyle. And I think that's a very, very sound statement to make. We've all had treatment, we've had expert treatment help, and the way we can now help ourselves is to carry on keeping fit, doing the exercise, staying healthy. So I'll just carry on. So please bear in mind that we're not experts, okay? We're just normal cancer patients like you that all enjoy healthy living. So please read the guide later again, and that'll give you the full guidance for exercise do's and don'ts prior to starting your new fitness regime. To further enhance your healthy living, part 2 of the guide covering diet and nutrition will be published in the spring. And please remember, this is not just a presentation, we want your participation. So please ask questions at the end of each presentation. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Peter Williamson, who is our guest speaker today, and he'll tell you about himself and help us with our fitness regime. So over to you, Peter.
You need to unmute.
Where are you, Peter?
I'm here. Thank you, Brian.
Okay.
Has that worked? Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Good. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm also enjoying the sunshine outside my window here, and I really want to get out there. I'm itching to get out there. So maybe later. I've known Brian for some time because my local outfit called Nordic Walking for Health was approached by Macmillan Cancer Support to set up a Nordic walking program for people living with and beyond cancer in the Brighton area. I'm from East Sussex. Briefly, my background is a health one. I've had a 20-year career in the health service, starting off in nursing, then health promotion, health education, and then ending up in public health. And to cut a very long story short, I had a life change, moved from Sheffield to Brighton, and discovered Nordic walking, tried it for a bit, thought it was doing me good. And then I thought I'd like to give it a go and sort of make a business out of it. Having worked for a big organization, I wanted to work for myself. I also wanted to have a more active lifestyle rather than being sat at the desk most of the time. So that's what I've been doing for the past 15 years. And I'd be happy to talk to you more about Nordic Walking for Health later, perhaps under that Nordic Walking section. Brian, probably more appropriate. So I was just going to start off by doing a very brief introduction to exercise and its benefits. The first thing I should say, as well, is that I'm not an expert. You know what my background is now, and I don't come from the fitness industry. So my approach to physical activity, in particular Nordic walking, and it's the special focus of Nordic Walking for Health, is that we provide Nordic walking as an activity in particular to those people who want to do it for health and well-being reasons rather than any other reason. I think the most important thing to say about exercise, and I think it's already been said in the introduction in the publication that Brian talked about, is it's never too late to start. There's always something appropriate for most people to do. The key thing really in our society and similar Western industrialized societies is that we're rapidly becoming physically inactive. To exercise, all we need to do is to move, and you can only move by using your muscles. So some movement is better than no movement. And looking forward, that's very important because it just simply reduces the amount of time we all spend inactive, whether that's by sitting or not doing something else. The one thing I've found in my recent work experience is that the people who stick to Nordic walking are those people who really enjoy it. And I think that's critical. I can't see any point in getting sort of stuck into an exercise that you really don't enjoy. The motivation just simply won't be there and you won't look forward to keep doing it. And that's the idea. Again, there's no point, I don't think, in taking up a form of exercise if you don't try and keep doing it over the long term. The other thing that can obviously motivate is doing it with other people. And a lot of our regulars like to come and join a group because they say it's easier to sort of, get up in the morning and go and do it, and therefore keep it going. If you can make it part of your routine, I think that is critical, and it's often, some people say, the hardest thing to do, to actually start it rather than keep it going, because once it's part of your routine, it's there, it just kind of fits in. Another aspect that is, I think, important is that try not to set goals or aims that are over ambitious, because then you're just giving yourself too hard a time. So set reasonable goals that you can see yourself achieving over short periods of time, and then you can pat yourself on your back for progress made. And finally, just in terms of this introduction, I think most of us are aware of the physical benefits of exercise, but there's a growing body of evidence and understanding that exercise benefits not just the body, but the mind as well. So there are mental, emotional, psychological health benefits. And just to list a few that you've probably already read about, there's quite a lot of evidence now that it improves certain aspects of our cognitive function, how the brain works. It can reduce stress and anxiety. It can improve mood, mindfulness. It can improve sleep, the quality of our sleep. It can be relaxing. It can reduce the risk of anxiety and depression, seasonal affective disorder, and promote self-esteem. And the other thing I think, again, is mentioned in your publication is there's emerging evidence that it will keep the level of inflammation inside our circulatory systems down. And that's a benefit in a huge number of ways, not simply issues to do with living with cancer. Have you all heard of the government guidelines for exercise? Okay, I'm just going to quote those because they've been around for years, and I think it makes quite a bit of sense. And they have split them up into different stages of the lifespan. So this is particularly for the over 65s, and I'm not making any comment on anybody's age there. I'll blame Brian for that. He steered me this way. So these guidelines were updated in September only last year. And they state that health benefits can be gained by daily physical activity, including the maintenance of good physical and mental health, well-being and social functioning. So I've covered most of those already. Some physical activity is better than none. Even light activity brings some health benefits compared with being sedentary, while more daily physical activity provides greater health and social benefits. So there's that upward curve, if you like. It's very important, physical activity, for maintaining or improving physical and physical function, and to do this by undertaking activities aimed at improving or maintaining, and this is the key part for the over 65s, muscle strength, flexibility and balance on at least 2 days a week. So that type of activity can be combined with sessions involving moderate aerobic activity, as I'm sure you know, that's the heart and lung version, or could be additional sessions aimed specifically at these components of fitness. And the other recommendation government make is you try and spend 150 minutes, which works out at about 2.5 hours, of moderate intensity aerobic activity a week, building up gradually from whatever your current levels are. Those who are already regularly active can achieve these benefits through 75 minutes of vigorous intensive activity or a combination of moderate and vigorous activity to achieve greater benefits. Weight-bearing activities which create an impact through the body help to maintain bone health as well. And the key thing really to try and bear in mind is to break up prolonged periods of being sedentary with light activity when physically possible, or at least with standing, as this has distinct health benefits for older people. And that's just a summary of the government exercise guidelines for people aged 65 and over. And that's my introduction.
Thank you, Peter. Have we got some questions now, please? Charles Kemp.
Yeah, the publication that was mentioned, I wrote it down and I can't find it now. Where does one get it? Is it online?
It's on, which group are you in, Charles?
Picasso, Chichester.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's on the Picasso website.
Okay.
Under publications, I think, from memory.
Okay.
And you just click on it and it comes straight up.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody? I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. Hold on. Can you unmute?
That better?
That's it, yes.
Right. Would you just tell us the name of that book again that you showed so briefly at the beginning?
Knowledge Empowers. That too is available on the Picasso website.
Knowledge Empowers. Right.
Knowledge Empowers.
That's what I wanted, thanks.
Yeah. Just give you an indication of what fitness can do for you. The chap on the front of the book with the blue top looking towards you, he exercises several times a week. I don't know his exact age, but he's as fit as a fiddle. He's had various forms of treatment, but he's a really good example of somebody that keeps very fit. So, any other? Alan, Isle of Wight. Sorry, Nicole, let's do Alan first. You unmute, Alan.
Yeah, the 2.5 hours moderate a week and then 75 minutes. I was a bit confused with that. Was that 75 minutes a day, or because I assume 2.5 hours is 30 minutes a day, and so you would be up in that? I don't know. Should you just clarify there, please?
Yeah, that was just for the 75 minutes of vigorous intensive activity or moderate and vigorous activity was for those people who were who are at that level already. So you can substitute that for the
So that's
2.5
in one go.
hours.
That's at one go. 75 minutes
No,
at
it
one hit.
doesn't have to be at one go. It's over the period of a week, 7 days.
Okay. So what's the definition of moderate and whatever activities? Because like some of my guys sort of say the walking the dog is, they've got a big dog and it's different from walking a little dog.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is obviously a little bit relative to the individual, but they tend to talk about, you know, easygoing, moderate, and then intense or vigorous. So it depends on your level of fitness. But if you're thinking about aerobic activity, which this mostly relates to, then it's really a question of how hard you're breathing, whether you're feeling warmer, maybe whether you're sweating a bit. And the precautionary principle is not to be breathing so hard, you're so out of breath, you can't talk to the person at your side or your imaginary friend.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicola?
Thank you. Hi, Peter. You spoke about Nordic Walking for Health in West Sussex. Do you know if there's anything in Hampshire of a similar line that's in conjunction with Macmillan or any other group?
Yeah, so my outfit is called Nordic Walking for Health. It's my business, and we're East Sussex.
Oh, right.
The best way of finding Nicola, Nordic walking instructor, and I can't tell you about any instructors who are working with Macmillan in different parts of the country, but I can point you somewhere to look at that. There are 2 Nordic walking organisations, and if you perhaps get in touch with Brian, he will pass your email on to me and I can send you the links. Just very briefly, one's called British Nordic Walking and the other one's called Nordic Walking UK, and they do vary a little bit in their approach. The best way to find out about Macmillan is simply to go on their website and search.
Okay.
They have a program, as some of you probably know about this. I don't think it's just Brighton focused. There's a program of physical activity that Macmillan run called Brighter Outlook. So when we delivered our Nordic walking, it was through their Brighter Outlook program.
Could I just say, Nicola, that when you read the guide again, the Healthy Living Guide, what Peter's just told you is in the back of the guide.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed.
With the links.
Super. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Andrew, could you unmute yourself?
Yes, let's go back to walking. I had a dog until last year, and I would describe my walk as lazy, because my dog wanted to sniff every blade of grass on the route. I haven't got a dog now, and I've managed to get up with standard walking, 3¼ miles an hour. So in an hour, I can walk 3 to 4 miles. And gradually, my circular route around my village has increased from just round the village 1¼ miles, and now, depending on which route I take, can be 2.5, 3 or 4. So, and I have done Nordic walking, and I have got the poles, and I found it very helpful. It seems to get me going a bit faster, but a lot of my route is on roadways and pavements, and that I find somewhat difficult using.
Yeah, very tricky.
Poles.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Andrew, for that. We'll be talking about walking later as well. For the moment, could I just say thanks very much, Peter, for so far. We'll take you across to our next speaker now. It's Lance Allen. He's been an active member of Picasso for several years, and he's also a major contributor to our new guide. So I'll pass you over to Lance now. Thank you.
Mute. Yes, hello everybody. Yeah, I'm just going to briefly talk about resistance exercises and show you the different type of kit I use. Resistance work is something that's so accessible. You can do this at home, in the garden, when you're on holiday, when we're allowed to go on holiday. You don't need to get changed into the latest Lycra gear, and I'd recommend it for everybody. I started doing resistance exercises probably 18 months ago because I'm on hormone treatment, and that can have a negative effect on muscle mass and bone density. And one of the best ways naturally to overcome that is through exercise. And resistance exercises works for me mainly for the upper body. I'm actually talking later about running as one of the sort of leg muscles, etc. Exercises. But I found that by doing 15 minutes a day, which is round about 1,500 movements, which I'll show you in an abridged version, it's not only helping my arm muscles, it's helping the shoulders, neck, back, and abdomen muscles. It gives a really good workout for the whole of the upper body. And it's just so easy to do. I would say everybody could do this. If you haven't done anything like this before, the usual rules will apply. Don't overdo it. Don't try and do too much at once, because you might injure yourself and it would put you off anyway. So you could start off by doing 10 of this kind of pulling or 10 of that pushing, which I'll show you next. The equipment you can acquire from a sports shop or from Amazon, fairly low cost. And I'll just show you now the kind of exercises I do as part of my daily 15-minute routine. I admit it's not actually every day, but some days I might do this twice, and some days not. I'll just have to come across here. Starting off with these, it looks like a skipping rope, but it isn't. It's resistance bands with 2 handholds. You can get different strengths of the bands to suit yourself, so that it is not too easy, not too hard, so it works right. And I'll start off with putting this under 1 foot. You can only see part of me, that's enough. And starting off at sort of waist height, it's already pulling already, and then up like that, up and down, controlled, not too fast, and do that 50 times. That's mine. You could start off doing 5 or 10. You know, I'm not prescribing how many to do. You could get a liking for this and do more. The next one is to hold the middle of it and hook it across a door handle. I do both sides of the door handle, and I've got some good pull on it already, and a sort of a skiing motion, pulling back 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's sort of 50 of those. Then turning round, and this uses a different set of muscles. If you can try and imagine skiing backwards, pushing in that direction. So when you're starting, you've already got some good resistance, but then more. And I do 50 like that. Turn round again. Then higher up, sort of higher chest height, you have to imagine you're rowing, like a rowing motion. Followed by, I do 50 the other way around. I don't know if anybody's been rowing. Try and row backwards, pushing that way. I'm hoping this summer after lockdown I can try this on the Chichester Canal or the Arun River. But following that, I move on to these hand grips to sort of sprung equipment items. This was a set I got online from a company called Syosin, S-Y-O-S-I-N. There are other makes available, but just by gripping them, and you can set them to a resistance that works. So I do it about halfway and just click like that with them. I know it probably looks a bit odd on this, but I do that 100 times, and that's good exercise for the hand muscles, which actually go up into the lower arm as well. And you can feel it working, which is great. Then using this little gadget, I can exercise each finger individually. 1, 2, 3, 4, do 50 of that, 50 of that. Even the little finger needs a bit of exercise, just steadying it and pushing on the little finger 50 times. And the same with the other hand. You could do them all at once, but that's not really the same. Let each finger have its own workout. I find it helps me. I do play the piano as well, not very well, not even up to Les Dawson's standard, but it helps. Then there's this small sort of show it behind white. This sort of finger grip that you put on goes on your thumb and all four fingers, and it uses a different set of muscles. Instead of the muscles that pull your fingers together, this uses the muscles that push your fingers apart, different muscles. I know it looks a bit strange at first, but I do that, and then on the other hand as well. And it's exercising that different set of muscles. Part of that same kit that came was like a rubber, like a tire almost, or a donut, and a rubber ball. What I use these for, the ball just for compressing the hand, and I use this to exercise the jaw muscles, because they need a bit of work as well. And I find it does help. I find my chin feels a bit tauter. So by holding onto it carefully, I know you're not likely to swallow this, but I have to say the health and safety thing, that just in the mouth, 50 good bites, and then the same with the other hand, and 50 good bites. Not to the point that you're likely to damage your teeth, but I do feel the benefit in the jaw and neck muscles. Getting there, nearly finished. This is you've probably heard or seen of Powerball. You might use one, but this is a clever little gadget. It's like a gyroscope, and you wind it up against its internal spring, or you could use some of them have a cord, so it's a bit like a yo-yo to get it going, and then let it loose. And you have to, there's quite a knack, it takes a while to get the knack, to spin it with your wrist, not with the elbow, but with the wrist. And you can hear it as it comes on song. Hopefully you can hear that. But just by twisting this, you're having to work against the resistance of it, because the gyroscope is working inside. You have to give it a really good grip. And imagine you're stirring something, stirring a huge pot of porridge. And I do that 200 times, and then 200 on the other hand as well. And you can really feel it working out the arm muscles. And Powerball is a separate company in its own right, and they do their own videos online to show different types of exercise, but that's part of my workout. And then just lastly, well, next to last, I use the band again, under 1 foot, purely for the biceps, and do 100 pulls like that. So by the time we've done that lot, I can feel my lungs working, my heart working. So the last thing I do to finish off with is a cup of tea. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Lance, for that wonderful demonstration. You're quite right that some of the things you use do look rather odd, but like you, I do a similar routine with similar gadgets, but slightly different. And whilst the aerobic side is well covered with walking and cycling and swimming and other things, it's all to do with looking after the upper body strength as well. So that's really demonstrated it nicely. It's something you don't need to go to a gym, and you can do it at home in the space of 15 minutes. So that's brilliant. Any questions, please? No? Ah,
Chris, there's Chris.
Chris, sorry, Chris, I couldn't see you.
The talk and the discussion that the two gentlemen have just given is very good, very interesting. But I do a lot of yoga, and I'm very keen on core strength, balance, and flexibility, gentle stretching of the muscles so they become like elastic
Sorry,
bands.
Chris, can I stop you there, please? We are covering that topic later on in the afternoon.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Righto. Andrew Bloxham.
You've got these elastics. Do they come in different strengths, and how much strength do you go? You can get them singly. You had a triple one there. What's the?
Yeah.
How do you get something that you can actually work and etc.? And are the prices different for different ones?
It came as a pack with, I think it was 5 different bands. The other ones are just in a drawer somewhere. But they've got little buckles, so they just clip onto the hand grips. And I haven't actually got the actual strength of them, but the red one is tougher than the blue one. And with the other 3, you can get different combinations of strength. You could start off with a fairly mild one and build up. And each individual knows best which gives good resistance, because again, you don't want it to be too easy, but you don't want to overdo it. So it's finding your own middle balance.
So what was the name of the company that you were buying? I'm really intrigued with the one you stuck your fingers in and expanded your hands. Or what's the company name?
It doesn't have the name on it, but if you just look on Amazon at resistance bands, it'll show you a variety of ones like this or similar. There's quite a few on the market. Or post-lockdown, if you go into Sport Direct or somewhere, they'll probably have some to show on the shelf.
Have you tried to do this with a group in Zoom or something like that to get people to join you in doing your morning 15 minutes or whatever? And if you did,
you see me as the next Joe Wicks.
Pardon?
You see me as the next Joe Wicks. I'm not sure I'm up to that.
No. I mean, as I said earlier, a lot of my guys admit to being well padded. I think that's how I'll put it. And therefore the word exercise immediately means they shirk away by the fact that no one's turned up today, pretty much emphasizes that situation. You know, to try and get them to do something like this, where they're actually not having to go to put any lycras on or anything else. I wonder if you'd had a go to see if it is possible to do as a group.
It's a great idea. I think there's a market.
Thanks, Alan. That was the whole purpose of inviting them to come along to see the opportunities that are available. So go on to Andrew now, please, Andrew.
Yes, I was on hormone treatment. I started in 2006. So by 2012, I'd already been diagnosed with osteoporosis, which I think is the kind of problem you're trying to avoid. Having been through an initial course of treatment, had a break because of the 5-year rule, I've had a DEXA scan and I'm now mildly, they say the doctor put it mildly, not good enough, not bad enough, not good enough. So I'm midway. Are these exercises you're suggesting, and I welcome them, likely to prevent me having to go back onto alendronic acid?
I'm on alendronic acid, and the weekly sort of that's the weekly and the daily calcium tablets. But using these in conjunction with, I think to use the alendronic acid alone is going to help your bone density to stop deteriorating further than where it is. The alendronic acid won't, I'm speaking as a patient, not as a medic. The alendronic acid will not rebuild as such bone density or muscle. It's down to the individual to use the muscle and the bones to build up. And I have found that my arms are noticeably thicker than probably have been the rest of my life, let alone since I've had the prostate cancer. And so, yes, alendronic acid helps stop deterioration, but I don't believe it will build things back up.
Thank you, Lance. Are there any other questions? Peter Williamson.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Lance, I just want.
You've muted, Peter.
Is that better?
Yes.
Sorry, I thought I'd done it, but it didn't do the job. Okay, Lance, I just wanted to ask you, I'll explain the context a bit more in a moment, but when you buy this kind of resistance equipment, do you feel that the instructions give you enough information? And the context is, you mentioned you do 50 or 200 or 100 repetitions. You've probably heard of things like a condition called repetitive strain injury. Classically, this can happen when you're over gripping something and doing the same movement too many times. And a lot of gyms use, as you know, resistance bands, all that kind of equipment. And one of the things I'd caution people about really is do make sure you start off at something that is not too much, and don't actually overdo it, but build it up slowly and see how your body reacts, because you won't necessarily know you've overdone it at the time. And the other thing is, when you were demonstrating the exercises, you appeared to me to be doing them fairly quickly. Is there anything in the instruction that explains the difference between doing repetitions quickly and doing repetitions slowly?
Doing them slowly would be even better for the muscles. I could slow them down, so it makes it like a 20-25 minute session, and I agree that would be even more of a workout. But the way I do it is, it works for me. I don't start off with the things being relaxed. I start with tension already before I start pulling. But I agree, there's all sorts of different ways of doing it, and different instructions, and different online videos will show different ways. But all I'm offering is what works for me.
Sure. It's an individual choice, but in physiological terms, generally the quicker repetitions are more about giving you power. The slower repetitions are more about giving you strength. So in terms of the age group, my steer would be towards the sort of slightly slower version of the repetition. But if you want to get a bit more aerobic, then you'll stand a better chance of getting aerobic by doing some of them, especially the bigger muscle group exercises, in a quicker way.
So that's a very good point, Peter. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very
I just
much.
wanted to, could I just comment on Alan's suggestion? Because obviously, Alan, you were saying exercise puts some people off, just the very word, and certainly gyms put a lot of people off. I like referring to it more around movement, because that brings a whole range of other disciplines in, like yoga, Pilates, etc., etc. And I find the message tends to be welcomed a bit more positively if we talk about moving for better health and well-being, rather than, having to take exercise.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very. Oh, Tony, Paul.
Yeah, just to amplify on what Lance was saying, there are some other sorts. Host to stop my video. Oh, right. Why does the host stop my video? The host has stopped it.
Mike.
You can still speak.
No, I want to show you something.
All right, just open it up then. We're just not recording faces as far as if we can.
On my video.
Anticipate what Tony's saying.
Yeah.
Yep.
These are a different sort of band, which it doesn't have anything on the end, so you can either just grip it or you can wrap it around your hand. And they come in different colours, and that's an easy one in green, and then a lot more powerful one. It's got a bit faded, that one. In purple. And different strengths and different thicknesses of rubber, in actual fact. And the other thing, someone was asking about the make of the exercise for the hand grips, etc. This was the bag, but I got some similar ones to Lance, and I didn't really know what all the things were in the packet, because you get about 6 different things. I got them for the grips, but I now know what they're all for, Lance. And I got those on Amazon, and they weren't too expensive. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Tony. Charles Kemp.
Yeah,
Last one for this session.
Just a quick one. The things that Lance that you were saying, the various equipment, what sort of cost are we talking about? And at one stage you said, and this was in the kit or something like that. So how much is in a kit, and how much other was there? What sort of cost are we talking about?
I think I probably got the lot for less than £60. The Powerball was probably just over 20. The bands probably just under 20, and the sizing, like Tony showed the bag of them, the various grips and things, that was probably about the same cost.
So it's all separate items from Amazon, is that right?
Yes.
Except the Siacin, which is a kit. Yeah.
Yes.
I got it. Thank
Because
you.
I was at first, I thought, what are all these for? And I just developed my own way of using them, and I've done that for over 12 months now, and I do feel the benefits.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much, Lance. That was excellent. And just to say that the cost of Lance's kit is less than 2 months membership at the local gym. So, okay, Mike, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just looked on Amazon. The resistance straps are $29.99.
Good. Thanks, Mike. So, next subject we were going to move on to is just generally talking about the green gym, without going into the specifics of riding and running and everything else. And with the green gym, it doesn't need to be going miles from your home. You can walk around your garden, you can do your gardening, dig an allotment, mow the grass, just general movement like those things is better than sitting in your chair reading the newspaper or watching the television. So the main thing we're trying to get over, if you don't do the major exercises, is just to move. Just don't sit at your computer for an hour. Just get up and have a walk. Just walk around your room, go and get a glass of water, walk up and down the stairs. If you've got stairs, part of my indoor routine is to run up and down the stairs 10 times just to warm up. So these are things that you can just do in your house without leaving the house. You're not even leaving your garden, especially in these times when we're all worried about bumping into people that we wouldn't want to bump into, really. One other thing that's just come to mind is pelvic floor exercises. Now, our next subject in a month's time is going to be incontinence, and pelvic floor exercises are really, really good and important for helping control incontinence. Does anybody do pelvic floor exercises out of interest? So yeah, that's good. So several actually know and do the pelvic floor exercises. Do you want to say something, Rob? Like to unmute?
Yeah, I don't mind speaking. What I found with pelvic floor exercises, and I've been doing them for nearly 5 years, is that you can get lots of different advice from different people about how to do them properly. And I'm still not absolutely certain, and I've spoken to quite a few people who say the same thing, still not certain if I'm doing them properly, but I am getting the benefit. So whether I'm doing them completely properly or not, I know that there is a benefit for me, and it's really helped with my incontinence.
Good.
So all I'm saying is, it's great to say, try them if you're incontinent, but it's very difficult to find out how to do them properly. And I've spoken to osteopaths. I've spoken to all sorts of hospitals, all sorts of people, and physiotherapists, and you do get different advice from different people.
Okay, thank you, Rob. That was very useful.
It's hard to know what to do.
Alan from the Isle of Wight.
Mute. On the first Wednesday of each month, Andy Gabriel runs a meeting at 8 o'clock where 3 consultants from UCL and and a pelvic floor exercise nurse, the chief one at UCL, are there to be questioned about anything you want to question them on, and anyone anyone can join that meeting to ask the questions, and I do every month, and they are just excellent. The consultants are excellent, but the lady who does the pelvic floor exercise is very good at describing exactly what you should be doing and how it works, and in fact questions you to find out exactly what you're doing and then how to modify it if needed to make it even better. Really recommend you get yourself along to that.
That's fantastic, Alan. Could you send me the email link, please, so I can?
Sure. Yeah,
so I can send it out to our members.
Yeah,
that'll be really helpful. Thank you. Good. So, just moving on now. We're going to talk a little about Nordic walking. Peter's mentioned the word several times. If Peter's disappeared, I know he's got to leave if his GP calls him. Yeah, Nordic walking, I was lucky enough to take it up about 3 or 4 years ago. I have, like all of us, suffered particular muscle loss, arms, legs, shoulders, all over. I'd always done lots and lots of walking. I lived near the South Downs, so I'm up and down the South Downs sort of every other day. I was lucky enough to be given the opportunity by Macmillan to join Peter's group, and I wrote the article in the book and explained that once you learn Nordic walking, it's something you've got for life. It's like riding a bike, and I thoroughly recommend it as a form of good exercise. You can get your heart rate up fairly quickly. You're doing your aerobic exercise, but at the same time, you're getting upper body strength improvement as well. So I'll just pass you over to Peter to give us a technical aspect of Nordic walking. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks again, Brian. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Could I just start off with a couple of questions? And if you just keep your hand up if you're going to answer it, just so I can click through to the second screen, that would be useful. So who has heard of Nordic walking? Well, you will have done. What a stupid question that is. Let's try another one. Who has tried Nordic walking? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That looks like 5, 6 with Brian.
Tony Ball has as well.
7. Okay, excellent. What I thought I'd do is I'd just introduce walking-based exercise to start with, because Nordic walking is just on that spectrum. It's part of walking exercise. So walking, if you like, is universal. Everybody does it if they can, and it's what we call an entry-level exercise or physical activity. In other words, it should be relatively easy to get started. The other thing that's I think critical is it's a natural movement. We're all designed to walk. It can be done indoors or in more confined spaces. You have to think about, we don't need to think of Captain Tom. Was he Sir Captain Tom, wasn't he? And where he did his walking to raise money for the NHS. If you can walk outdoors, there's now a wide body of evidence that shows there are significant added benefits from walking outdoors in nature or exercising outdoors in nature. So if you think of walking as a spectrum of movement, it suits people with different mobility and fitness levels, and there's always room for improvement. And we like to talk about a range of the spectrum for walking. So there's unaided walking. There's walking with some support, whatever that may be. So it could be a walking stick or 2 trekking poles, or there are other things people use. And at the other end of the spectrum, I would put Nordic walking, because Nordic walking has been shown to be a better whole body exercise. In other words, a body that exercises more of the muscles in the body rather than just some of them, than either jogging or light running. And that surprises quite a few people when they hear that for the first time. Now, the key to reaping benefits as individuals from this type of exercise is, can you improve your walking technique? And this predominantly means making your normal walking style more natural. And that fits into the point that I made earlier about the fact that our societies are becoming much more inactive, much more sedentary. So most people's walking, their normal walking, is not that natural anymore, especially in relation to how the upper body is used. You can aim for muscle strengthening when walking, and ideally walk at a brisk pace for aerobic exercise. So you can combine the two types of exercise you need through walking, but especially through Nordic walking. So outdoors, you could be walking up a gentle incline, long enough to do over more time or over a longer distance by gradually increasing this in the way that's comfortable for you. Or indoors, as I think Brian has already mentioned, climbing stairs. So that's just a brief introduction to walking-based exercise. If I now introduce Nordic walking, and I'll talk a little bit about the Nordic walking for health approach. Nordic walking was invented back in the 30s by the Finns, one of the countries that's very keen on cross-country skiing, and they wanted to keep fit outside of the snow season. So it's been around for a while, and it has spread fairly rapidly around the world. It came into the UK about 16, 17 years ago, but basically no one was doing it. So it has seen quite a steep rise, but still the numbers are quite low, relatively speaking, if you compare with other activities. But there's still some confusion about what it is and what it isn't. So often people say to me, oh, I saw some people doing what you do the other day, and they might be talking about a group of walkers on a hillside using poles. The main confusion is the difference between walking with trekking or walking poles and Nordic walking. And the difference is that a walking or trekking pole is simply a support or an aid to stay balanced and secure and safe as you walk. A Nordic walking pole is a specially designed pole to allow you to exercise your upper body as well as your lower body whilst you're doing walking-based activity. So the Nordic walking pole is related to the cross-country skiing pole. Now our strap line at Nordic Walking for Health is walk tall, naturally, with purpose. So those few words just sum up what we try and do and what people can get out of it. A lot of it is to do with posture. That's the walk tall. Naturally is what I mentioned before. We're trying to make your normal walking style more natural. That way you're using more muscles and you're using them in the way they're designed. And I've just forgotten the end of my strap line. What did I say? Walk tall, naturally, with purpose. Thank you very much. And this comes back to someone was talking about, I think it was Andrew, was talking about going for a stroll. And one of the misunderstandings is about how you should walk. So going for a stroll in the park is great if that's your level of exercise. You can get other benefits out of it as well. But what you want to try and do, if you possibly can, is to walk at a brisk pace, because then you're getting aerobic benefit. And if you can combine that with a little incline or some kind of climb, then you're getting more muscle strengthening. Someone was mentioning they tried Nordic walking, but on pavements, etc., it was very tricky. Andrew again. I generally tell people you can Nordic walk wherever you can walk, but actually in reality, that's not true. So what you need as a Nordic walker is a wider trail than a sort of single track footpath, for example, because you're now a four-legged animal. You've got two poles, so you've got to have a bit of space. The terrain ideally should be as flat as possible. Obviously in the countryside, that's going to be easy or difficult depending on the location. And the best surfaces to Nordic walk on are short grass, long grass is a nightmare because it holds the poles up above the ground. You don't get the pole landing on the ground, and you've got to get that pole fixing to the ground for the technique to work. Or a hard surface that's quite clean. So where I live near the coast in East Sussex, near Eastbourne, we have some undercliff paths, for example, and some near Brighton. Often they are covered in sand, pebbles, or chalk, and the rubber paw on the end of the pole simply won't grip that. So it's much harder actually to Nordic walk on a hard surface than it is to walk off-road on the grass, because when you do that, you take the rubber paw off the end of the pole and use a metal tip. So that pole is bound to stick in the ground. So unless the Nordic walking pole fixes itself to the ground and stays there, you're not getting the full benefits of Nordic walking, because you're not doing the muscle strengthening exercise that you get out of the upper body technique. So what you learn if you want to take up Nordic walking is an upper body technique mainly. We don't tend to coach the lower half so much, but it does vary from individual to individual, and how to use these specific poles. And if you get very good level of technique, you'll find that you're exercising or recruiting many, many more muscles throughout your body, in particular in the upper half, simply to walk. And that's where the benefits come from. The more muscles you can use when you're exercising, the better the exercise benefits. So what we tend to do at Nordic Walking for Health is spend a significant amount of time teaching or enabling someone to walk more naturally. And the Nordic walking technique develops natural walking further by engaging more muscles in the walking movement, particularly, as I said, in the upper body. If Nordic walking suits you and is something you can achieve, you'll find your level of technique. And I won't go through the details, but we tend to refer to 3 different levels of technique. And when you go for your exercise, you're always in control of how hard you do it. It's completely up to you. There's no one, nagging you or shouting at you in the background. Because there are these different levels, you'll always be able to aim for something higher. So there's always room for improvement. But the key thing about Nordic walking is that it's at the walking level, and it combines aerobic, the heart and lung exercise, with resistance exercise, muscle strengthening exercise, simply at that level, just walking.
Good. Thank you, Peter. You have any questions on? Okay, Peter Dixon. You're on mute, Peter.
Right, any better? Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
That's it.
Yeah, I must say, Peter, that the Nordic walking, it does seem good to me, simply because it covers the upper body as well as the lower body as well. Whereabouts does one go to find out about techniques and maybe the type of equipment? Now, I'm up in Basingstoke in North Hampshire, and I can't say that I would have many wide paths. I haven't got the downs to sort of go up and down on. I've not got the the seafront to go along. And whilst there's sort of countryside around, it is rather limited and accessible because the majority of it is farmland rather than being open land. So, is there any way that I could possibly look to try it out to see if it suits my requirements, really? Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. As I mentioned earlier, there are 2 national Nordic walking organisations. There's British Nordic Walking and there's Nordic Walking UK. If you go onto their websites, and again, if you get in touch with Brian, I can relay the information to you. On their websites, they both have a find an instructor or find a class page. So you'll be able to tap in your postcode and find out whether there is an active instructor in your area. Just one word of caution, or 2 actually. Sometimes these lists aren't that up to date. So don't be frustrated if you try and contact someone and it ends up that they're no longer doing it. That can happen. And do be clear that if you want to go on a Nordic walking course, that the instructor is properly accredited. It's like any course. You get good teachers and bad teachers. I don't know if you know this, but it's impossible to teach yourself to Nordic walk. You'd have to take yourself out of your own body and become your own observer or teacher to do that. And we're not quite there yet, are we? We've got avatars coming along, but it's a way off. So people often come to me and they say, well, I've bought my poles, and often I have to say, sorry, you've got on board a pair of trekking poles or walking poles. So then they have to sell those and buy a pair of Nordic walking poles. Or people come in and say, oh, I bought a book. I've read this book, I've tried to teach myself, but I don't think I'm getting it right. So then they come on a course and learn the technique in a more effective way. Or people will say, I went on YouTube. There's loads of video clips of Nordic walking on YouTube. And I've been instructing for 15 years now. I was one of the first batches of instructors to be trained in the UK. And to date, I have never seen a good YouTube video clip of Nordic walking.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay, thanks very much.
We're both Peters, but I just reinforce what Peter's just said. Before I did the Nordic walking course, I never realised how you needed to be trained. And Peter said earlier that you never hear him shouting at people. Well, that's wrong, because when I was doing it, he was always shouting at me. It was usually to slow down and come back, but often to get my posture right and the actual movements. Did Brian have a hand up earlier, or has it been answered, Brian? If you unmute yourself. You're still muted, Brian. No, you're still muted, Brian. Can you help Mike at all or not? Brian Harris.
Only he can unmute.
I think I'm now unmuted.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I just wonder what sort of cost is involved for a beginner in finding the right pair of poles. And where's the best place to buy them?
Okay, thank you, Brian. I could just touch on equipment and courses if you like. Basically, for both of them, equipment and courses, it's a market.
Okay.
Okay.
Not really regulated. When Nordic walking, hear me?
No, you keep breaking up, Peter. Oh, well, we'll leave that one for the moment.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, we'll leave that and come back to it later. If Peter's still here.
Can you hear?
Move on now to the next topic, which is by Lance. And that's, over to you, Lance. You're going to talk about running.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, thanks then, Brian. Yeah, running is another one where it's great cardiovascular exercise and good for all your lower body muscles and upper body as well to a degree. And running is one you can do when you want, where you want, for how long you want, 100 yards, 10 miles. But usual rules, don't overdo it. You know, don't try and hair off too quickly and sign yourself up for the London Marathon. I'm currently fit for maybe 5 miles. I'd like to get up to 10. But you know, I know my limit. If I overdo it, I just feel unwell for a few hours after, and I know I've gone too far. For running, you can use just residential roads or country tracks if they're there. If you're near the sea, you've got the beaches or promenades maybe. I prefer trail running on the South Downs. I'm lucky enough to be very close to Sisbury Ring and Chanctonbury, and there's some great tracks. At the moment, some of them are treacherously muddy, so I have a treadmill as well that, as a family, we have in the garage. But if you've not tried running before, a good way to start, I would recommend, is looking at the NHS website. They've got a section called NHS Couch to 5K, if you just Google that, couch to 5K, it would find it. And I think it's a very good website where it's got video demonstrations and training programs where you start from absolute zero. And as you start to do a bit more running, it builds your confidence. You want to do more. And it's sort of, the NHS has to be the official way, which is great. Then you might want to look at, after lockdown, looking at what they call park runs in various towns. You do have one here in Worthing, where they have 5K runs every Saturday morning, for example. So once lockdown is finished, it's worth just looking at, is the one in your area that you could join. And no one's saying you've got to run at a certain pace. No one's saying you've got to run non-stop. You can run for a minute, walk for a minute, run for a minute, walk for a minute. Buy a running magazine, Runner's World or something, that will give you some indications. What is absolutely critical for running though is the quality of the shoes. And it is something that is worth investing in properly. Show you nice Dunlop shoes, rubber soles, superb grip, but very thin soles. So I wouldn't use these for running. I actually use these for cycling instead, gripping the pedals, but not enough cushioning in the soles. Pair of Nikes. Look at the thickness of the sole there. And these have got the air pockets inside. Some have springs and all sorts, or like gel pockets. But these have worked really well for me. A fairly flat tread, so good for pavements and roads. But then I've got these Columbia shoes, ones that I particularly like. There are other makes, of course, but look at the tread on these. These are fantastic for off-road, on hillsides, and on cinder or muddy tracks. I've cleaned them up specially for today. But having that range, and you don't necessarily have to buy a lot of extra kit to wear. I would say if you do go out for a run, start off feeling a bit cold. Don't be overdressed, because if you're feeling snug at the start, you'll be boiling halfway around. And you find your own way of doing it and your own place. And running can be social. It can be just by yourself, as and when. Oh, look, it's a great evening. I think I'll go out and do a couple of miles. Some people like to measure their progress very carefully using an electronic watch, like a Fitbit or Apple Watch or other ones. I don't go to that degree myself. In fact, I enjoy measuring my routes on the Ordnance Survey map for distance and for height. So everybody has their own way of doing it. A couple of years, until lockdown, I did 1 or 2 10K races each year. But I did the London Marathon 25 years ago, just as a one-off. And I didn't win it, but I did carry on running without stopping, which I thought was great.
Very good.
So I don't think I'll be doing that again, though, but I'm happy just to use the Downs for trail running. And I'd recommend it, but again, take your time, try it, build up, because if you overdo it, it'll just put you off. Okay, thanks, Brian.
Right, thank you, Lance. We'll just move on to the next. I'm conscious that we're going slightly over time. We'll move on to the next topic, which, as I think it was Chris mentioned earlier, about yoga and Pilates.
Yeah.
So, Chris, where are you? Could you say something, please? Chris Cutting? Could you open, Chris? Could you unmute, please, Chris?
Yeah, I've just unmuted.
Thank you.
Okay.
You did mention about yoga and Pilates.
Well, yoga is mine. I'm not a Pilates follower, but I have for, well, 40 odd years done yoga in varying degrees, and I've done it a lot more in the last 15 years or so, and it is just invaluable. And every time I can stand on my on one leg for longer each time when we do a balance exercise, and then I'm just finding that I need to do balance movements around the house. It's just fantastic. And what I like about it is that you get, the muscles are strong, they're supple, they're flexible, and it's okay. It's not. I'm not suggesting it's great for aerobic, but it's certainly, if you want to improve your core, there are many things you can do within the yoga exercise ranges to do that. And I've probably got better core strength now than I had when I was 20 years old.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thanks for sharing that with us. And I think we weren't going to spend lots of time on yoga and Pilates unless there are some people that have good specific knowledge about it. Other than, as Chris has just explained, it's really good for improving your balance, as well as having the physical strength to do these exercises. Something that's equally important during and after exercise is stretching. So you're doing physical stretches to ease the muscles after your exercise, but also with things like yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, others, you're getting, as Chris said, the core strength and balance, because the older we get, the more likely we are to trip down curbs and maybe miss a stair coming down. I mean, my mother-in-law several years ago tripped on the bottom stair of our steps and banged her head against the radiator. So, you know, it's something that we all take for granted, but it's important. So, as Chris said, you can stand on one leg anywhere. You can be in your shopping queue, I don't know, making a cup of coffee, but you can try all these sort of different balancing methods to help improve that sort of aspect. Ray, have you got your hand up because you'd like to say something? Could you unmute?
That's right. I just wanted to come back in on what Lance was saying on a couple of items.
Okay.
Firstly, I can't stress the importance of getting the right shoes to do road running. A good friend of mine who's just turned 66, he decided that he was going to train to do some specific exercise and did a lot of road running. Unfortunately, he was an extreme case where he wore the wrong shoes, and to the detriment of his legs, he actually went out to play golf one day, and his left leg, which he went to play on, he broke it in 2 places. And the doctors said to him that basically all the road running he'd done was too much of a shock to the joints, particularly of his legs and his knees and his ankles. And he had difficulty with the bone structure. So that was one issue. And the other one was make sure of hydration. If you're going to go out running, make sure you keep yourself well hydrated.
Yeah, that goes with all exercise. Yeah, thank you for that, Ray. Thank you. Peter, do you want to say something?
Just very briefly, if I could. Yeah, very briefly, if I could. My internet connection.
It's what you get when you live out in the sticks.
Sorry, Brian, my internet connection keeps going stable to unstable, so I'll give it a go. I just wanted to add Nordic walking to the list that's already got things like yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi on it, because it has very significant postural benefits. And this is largely to do with not just core strengthening, but overall body strengthening. If you can strengthen your muscles, that's where you get the benefits in terms of balance and coordination. And the other thing we do is we teach well, a good Nordic walking instructor should teach Nordic walking on the flat, the uphill and the downhill. And what people find very advantageous learning downhill technique is it reduces the risk of trips and falls. So people often feel a lot more confident when they've learned that technique, especially if they've had some kind of trip or fall in the past. And as someone mentioned, Brian, I think it was you, actually yourself, the importance of stretching. We always recommend and teach warming up exercises before Nordic walking and stretching afterwards.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. And our final topic for this afternoon is cycling, believe it or not. Alan, I'm not sure if he's still there. Oh, sorry,
Right.
Derek Piling. Derek, I can see you.
It's Derek Pilling, by the way.
Pilling, sorry,
Yes.
I've not got my glasses on.
Could I just say that I stuck up Nordic walking when it first started in Westmore's Country Park, and they had trainers there, did everything that Pete Williamson said, and I did it for about 3 or 4 years. But during that time, I did pull something in my back, and I kept getting a trapped nerve. And when I saw the physiotherapist about it, she asked me what I was doing. She said, well, it's the actual movement of Nordic walking, the pulling of it and the poles that's causing it to trap. So I had to give it up. And since I've given it up, I've not had that problem. I keep trying sometimes, but it certainly lets me know. So there are warnings there.
Okay, Peter would like to respond to that one.
Yeah. I don't want to comment in particular, Derek, about your individual situation, because I'd need to ask you a lot more questions. But this goes back to the point of making sure you're on an accredited course, good teachers,
it was a
bad
accredited
teachers.
course, that's what I said.
Okay,
All
okay,
the
that's fair.
papers were shown to us.
Yeah, fair enough.
Westmore's Country Park.
Yeah, okay.
And they still do it now.
And I have come across, Derek, accredited instructors who aren't very good teachers.
No, they have to pass exams and go off to places like you went to get
Right,
the training.
thanks very much for that. We'll move on.
Okay.
Because that argument will go on forever. And I don't think anyone will benefit from it. So we'll move on to cycling. Now, cycling is one of my passions. Just, to give you once again the fact that muscle wastage affects us all, and I had to almost give up cycling completely during the first sort of stage of my treatment, and I was going to have a ride along the South Downs Way from Winchester to Eastbourne with my son. At that time, he was 34 years old, super fit, and I knew I couldn't keep up with him. So I bit the bullet, and I had my bike converted to an e-bike. And it's the best thing I've ever done. I had a very good bike, and for the cost of £1,000, my whole cycling experience changed dramatically. On the South Downs Way, I was able to beat my son up all the hills. I was able to go further than I'd cycled since I was his age. And it's opened up a whole new range of cycling experience. So if you are into cycling, or even if you're not, you want to get into cycling, you don't feel as though you're going to have the leg power, and I thoroughly recommend that you consider converting your own bike or buying an already electric bike. So Alan from the Isle of Wight, would you like to say something, Alan, on your experience? Because you've got a lot of hills on the island.
We have, yes, we have quite. You have a lot of sunshine and a lot of hills. I know, I keep saying that. The important thing, like having shoes for running, the saddle, absolutely imperative that you've got your saddle sorted out. I'm fortunate when it comes to incontinence that I have an artificial sphincter fitted inside of me, but it does mean that I have to be careful where I sit down. And so I was told initially I wouldn't be able to cycle, but there are now saddles around that with hollow centers, etc., gel fittings and all the rest of it. So there's now no worries about sitting on the wrong piece of your anatomy when you go cycling. You need also puncture resistant tires. It's nothing worse than getting a puncture in the middle of nowhere, and it can be a worry that some people don't want to do it, and you get inner tubes with liquid flowing around inside of them, so there's no chance of you getting a puncture whatsoever when you're going there. I would recommend mud guards. I watch all these other guys. Well, I just went out today, saw the other big black streak up their back and up their front and what have you, just because they don't want to have mud guards that feel a bit old-fashioned. Okay, I'm old-fashioned, that's how it is. But I've come in and I'm still wearing what I went out in, and it's not covered in mud, and my face wasn't covered in mud, etc. So it can be, and it's the whole thing about the cycling, as Brian said, is it opens up where you're going. I mean, I can cycle 14 miles. I can see there were some fantastic pheasants strutting around this morning, but they were 8 miles from where I live. I wouldn't have been able to walk there. I couldn't go in my car there because I'm going off slightly. I'm off road, but I'm not off road. There's a lot of railway tracks that they converted into walkways, etc. And that's what I tend to use all the time. So yeah, it is really good. When I come back, I am nice and warm. I don't get cold when I'm out when I'm cycling along as well. So recommend it to anybody and everyone, sort of thing, to go and have a go. If you're not a runner, which I'm not, and I've tried it and not really enjoyed it. I do walk because there's great walks around here, but you don't get very far. But with cycling, you get far broader, wider range of what you're going to be looking at, etc. The only one negative on all of this is that e-bikes are a little bit more expensive to purchase in the first place rather than a standard bike. So you just need to be aware and careful of the sort of bike you're going to get to make sure that whether it's driven by the back wheel, the front wheel, or around where the crank is itself. And it's just worth spending just a little bit more, because then the computer on board and make sure that you do work a bit. It doesn't let you totally just sit there and go along on the electric motor. You do have to work the crank, because then it measures how much pressure you're putting in, and then it'll help you if it thinks you need helping. Or of course you can crank it up to turbo and cheat a bit, but it does, you do have options there of how to use it. It's just such good fun. It really is.
Great. Good. Thanks very much, Alan. And just to reinforce what Alan says about the saddle, I have exactly the same sort of setup, and we speak about it in length in the publication about selecting the right saddle. On a lighter note, I'm often up on the South Downs Way and going up the hills, and people shout at me, "You're cheating." So I stop and I politely say to them, well, the reason I've got this electric bike is because I've just had prostate cancer. I've had a lot of muscle wastage. And after I've explained it to them, they apologise and wish me well on my ride. So there you are. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask about cycling or anything else that we've not covered properly for you? Lance?
Yeah, just to say, I think we were talking just before about converted railways on the Isle of Wight. That's an extremely good example. We've got some around here. There's the Shoreham to Guildford, the Downs Link. There's the Cuckoo Trail further east in Sussex, and other ones will be around. They're marvellous because you can ride your bike for miles without traffic. You're not worried about lorries, cars, motorbikes. You just sort of have to respect other people, horse riders, walkers and other cyclists, but they're a brilliant way to get a nice, good length of bike ride, 5, 10, 20 miles without traffic. So certainly a place to look out for, converted railways.
Good. Thank you, Lance.
Yeah, can I just respond? Yeah, you're absolutely. I mean, the 14 miles I did today, I did 3/4 of a mile on a road, and the rest of the time I saw no traffic whatsoever. So there isn't because you're a little bit of a target if you're on the road. Well, so I don't like cycling on the road. I just go for these sort of ex-railways, etc. Or I mean, along the front. I cycled along the front this morning as well, which was good fun. So yeah, it isn't a road cycling thing. It's avoiding the traffic.
Good, thank you, Alan. Any more questions from our members?
Can I also mention crash helmets? I
it's
have
all
a thing
covered.
about I have a thing about that, and it's important that if you're going to go cycling, you do wear a crash helmet as such, a comfortable crash helmet. I've got one that adjusts when you fit it on. You can just, which is nice because as I get hot, I can loosen up a bit. So, but crash helmets are a must.
Yeah, that's all covered in detail in the guide. So we've done that. So just to summarise then, thank you all very much for coming. Hope it's been useful to you this afternoon, and hopefully it's inspired you to all get out of your chairs if you spend a lot of time in your chairs, and just make an effort to do just even a little bit every day. Just go out half an hour walk, or half an hour at home, getting a couple of bean cans and using the bean cans maybe to give you arm exercises, just anything to get you moving. And yeah, so we hope we've given you that inspiration. Please refer back to the guide. I keep saying it, but there's so much useful information in our new guide, and we talk about lots more detail, important detail, that will help you do everything properly without injuring yourselves. And as Peter said at the start, remember it's never too late to start exercise. And I've stressed before in our Mid-Sussex Group newsletter that my 86-year-old mother goes out every day for a half-hour walk around where she lives, and thoroughly enjoys it, being out in the fresh air. Just the last thing on exercise is, this is a brilliant book. It's called How to Live, and it's by Professor Robert Thomas. He's one of Britain's leading oncologists. And the best thing about this book is on the back, and it said, "Did you know that drinking a glass of red wine and eating olives after sunbathing can reduce the risk of skin damage?" So there's your reason. You can go out and exercise, you get suntanned like me, and you can come home and drink your red wine and olives without feeling guilty. So, and finally, our next meeting is going to be hosted by Picasso. Do you want to say anything about it, Roger, or shall I just say what it's about? The dates?
No, I believe it's in 4 weeks' time. And we've got Dr. Steve Allen talking about incontinence.
Yes.
And the problems that can be caused after either radiotherapy or a radical prostatectomy, and how to cure incontinence problems.
Thank you. It's actually on March the 18th, same time, 2:30. And we've had Steve Allen speak before about erectile dysfunction and other problems, and he's an excellent speaker. He's one of the best presenters I've heard on cancer-related issues, so he's well worth a look. So thank you all for coming again. If you've got any questions that you want to ask me later, then please email me directly, and I'll be happy to put it to the group and the team to try and to answer questions. My email address is chair@midsussexprostate.uk, and that's on our website. So, Alan, you wanted a quick word from the other
Just
right?
Is that okay? It says,
Yep.
oh yes, it is. Okay. Just to quickly say that next Thursday, 2 o'clock, Isle of Wight group is meeting. Everybody in front of me will be delighted to see you to come along to it. Interestingly, we've got a Mr. Tony Collier who's going to be talking to us. So it might be a bit of overkill because he's going to also talk about keeping moving, etc., with his his journey through prostate cancer, and then how he has I'm not going to use the word, how he has kept himself moving along to try and help with muscle and aerobic and all the other things, exactly what I've heard this afternoon. And we've got that. So anybody who would like to come and see an alternative way of doing things, please come and join us at 2 o'clock. And you can see my email address, which is iwpcsg@gmail.com. If you send that along, we'll get the link to you. I'll send it to you, Brian, anyway, so that people can get the link if they want to come and join us. But thanks for inviting us today. It's been brilliant.
Okay.
Really
Brilliant.
impressed with Lance and Peter. Excellent. Thank you.
Good. Thanks very much. So that concludes our presentation, everyone. So